Yes. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Hey, good. Hey, I know I'm going to be starting off. Justin, I believe, will introduce me for the next talk, and
Okay.
then I will be the first of three. So it'll be me, Fran, then Justin with this one presentation. I am in an area that has just satellite internet. So am I coming in pretty clear or is it
Yes.
choppy?
It's not choppy. It sounds good on my
Okay.
end.
Okay, let me see if I can also pull up my presentation if you just want to hang tight
Yes.
and um, just because we have a little time. So,
Okay.
okay, can you see it?
Yes, you are slightly fading in and out on your sound.
Okay. Okay, let me also then, let me disconnect and get on, see if I can get on my hotspot and
Okay.
see, let me get back on. So if you can maybe let me back in and we'll see if that's better.
And
Okay.
the other thing, Michael, sometimes what helps is
Oh,
if you've got
yes.
the Sabrina, if you've got spotty
Yeah.
internet or satellite,
Mm-hmm.
leave your video up,
Oh, yeah.
but close your audio and dial in audio wise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sometimes
Okay.
the video
Okay.
is overloads.
So, yeah, sometimes the video, like she said,
Yeah.
overloads. And so we can see your screen, you can manipulate it, but then you're coming through audio in a different way that does work better sometimes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Can he still
And I
share
make,
screen if he does that?
Yeah, because he's going to log on basically two ways.
Okay.
The
right.
video way,
So I'm,
yes.
yeah,
So
and then
he
I'll
can,
dial in with my phone.
yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, we can try that if we need to.
Okay. Just giving
That's
you
no
some
problem.
options to
So,
kind of play with in the
yeah,
next 10 minutes or so.
absolutely. Yeah, sounds good. Let me see if I can. So I guess I would mute my audio and then just dial in through my phone.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, let me do that and then
guys that were on the call earlier with Kimberly and Kyle. I think that was super beneficial. Meredith went through some frequently asked questions about TABC and the AIM system. For those of you that didn't make it, it will be on the Twigga website for viewing later. And in fact, I'm going to have my office manager and our event coordinator listen to it so they understand some of the pains that everybody's having with the AIM system. But first, if you heard it before, tough luck. You're going to have to hear it again. I just want to give kudos to Meredith and Justin, who you can see their faces, for all the work they've been doing on putting these educational sessions together. It's not easy, and it takes some time, and not just they're our education and conference committee chairs and co-chairs. They're not doing just this, but they're also putting the content together for Grape Camp and our annual conference. So feel free to drop in the chat if you have any interest, if you have any topics that you want to hear, but also give them a quick thank you for doing all this stuff for you guys and for us and for the benefit of our industry. And Sabrina deserves a little recognition too. She's on the screen. She's our Twigga staff at the moment. She's a little bit of a lone soldier together with Mary, but she is putting out all the communications that you guys are seeing and keeping you informed of what's going on in the industry. We're moving a lot in the legislative session. And of course, we've got all this educational stuff coming up. So stay tuned. So without further ado, Meredith, I'll let you introduce your speakers.
I think Justin's actually going to be introducing Michael and Fran and himself. So I'll let him take it away.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. And those of you who are sticking with us, thanks. And those of you who are just now joining, welcome to the second session here. If you missed the first, as was mentioned, it will be available on Twigga's website. So this morning there was mention of several acronyms, AIMS, TABC. It seems like every month there's a new acronym to learn, a new program, different agencies. And so this presentation is going to hopefully, bring some of that together, shed some light on some of the new programs, maybe even some of the old programs that are out there, and then really just all of the resources that are available to new vineyards and wineries and existing vineyards and wineries. And so we're going to split this up in three parts. Michael Cook is going to take on the first, Fran Pontash, and then I'm going to finish it off. So Michael Cook is, most of you probably know him, program specialist or viticulturist in North Texas. So good friend, colleague, and a man that's never short on words. So I will turn it over to Michael to start this presentation.
Thanks, Dr. Shiner. That's the nicest thing you've ever said about me. So I appreciate that. Howdy, guys. First things first is I apologize. I'm on HughesNet right now in the Hill Country. And so I'm going to do my best not to lag. One thing I'm going to do is you're not missing out on much. So I'm going to turn my video off and let me share my screen. So I'm excited to be here. And again, I know we've got a lot of seasoned vineyard owners and managers and winery owners and managers. And, you know, you go, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. I know who TDA is, and I know who, you know, TTB is. I have to deal with them all the time, and it's a headache or a blessing, whatever. Well, you know, things change all the time, and there's new data, there's new information. And then also Mother Nature likes to throw things our way. And this was the perfect year to really push our limits as Texas grape growers in particular, but even COVID with the winery side of things. So I am a viticulturist, so my, you know, expertise and what I deal with day to day is the vineyard side. But I know with Extension, we've been working with Twiga and of course our wineries throughout COVID, and even some of these issues with reduced harvest this year and how wineries are going to meet the demand. So if I lose connection, I'll get back on. Hopefully you can hear me okay, and let me share my screen. So I think y'all can see that. So today, like Dr. Shiner said, we're going to be just quickly discussing the acronyms and agencies to know. Again, maybe you're a brand new grower. I know we've got a couple on the call who just got into this, and you're networking with other vineyards and wineries, and you're going, who, TDA who? TABC what? Maybe you're a seasoned grower and you know who TDA is, but you've never had to question when you lose a crop or you have, you know, half your vineyard has died from Winter Storm Uri. What is available? Is there kind of a safety net? And you know, regions like California or Washington State that are, you know, a little older than us, a little more developed in that industry, have more protection than we do in Texas. But unbeknownst to most, we actually have some great organizations and agencies that can help us in times of need. And so I want to quickly just talk about those. And we had Kat Nielsen with the Texas Department of Agriculture and Lindsay Bearwald in June discuss some of this in more detail. But kind of as a refresher, you know, the old adage is, how do you make $1 million in the wine industry? We all know the answer if we've been around any amount of time. The answer is start with 2 million, right? And so it's a very expensive, and it's a, you know, a long-term goal to be successful in the wine industry. And anything we can do to help our bottom line is something we should take advantage of. So I want to kind of lay the foundation today and talk about some of these bigger agencies. You've heard about TABC or TTB if you're brand new. If you, again, in the wine industry, you've been dealing with them since day one. But let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to talk about is something that I find so exciting, and that is where our industry is headed. And I don't have to tell y'all, but you know, long gone are the days where you would say there's not a Texas winery near me. That's not something we have to worry about anymore. And our industry continues to grow. And it's easy to look at old resources and go, oh, you know, we have 500 wineries in the state, but it's always good to really promote ourselves and look at the most current data. And there's a really interesting organization out there. If you're not familiar, whether you're in the vineyard business or in the winery business, go ahead and get on Facebook and look at the American Association of Wine Economists. They put out top-notch economic data on wine, not only in the nation, but in the international realm too. And they have tons of great research-based facts and figures. And this is one of the newest ones. This is from 2020, and it shows you the growth from 2000 to 2020 as far as the number of bonded wineries in the United States. Now, some of you go, you know, what technically is a winery? There's always that discussion. This is from the Tax and Trade Bureau, so the federal level, but it doesn't really matter as far as ranking and what's a winery and what's not, because everyone's being recorded the same. So the playing field is the same based on, you know, the number of bonded wineries in California versus Texas. What's really cool is you can look at this and it's just fascinating, but we hit a new milestone for Texas. And that is, we used to be number 5 in pretty much everything: vineyard acreage, winery production, and number of wineries. But as of 2020, Texas has outpaced New York State for the number of bonded wineries. We are now number 4. Okay, we had 67 wineries in 2000, and now we have, according to the federal level, 791. That is tremendous growth we should be very proud of. This was 2020, so I realize it's 2021. Look at Oregon, 817 wineries. There's a very good chance, now I know COVID may have reduced our numbers temporarily, we might have lost a couple of our wineries, but in the next year or so, we may outpace Oregon as far as the number of bonded wineries in each state. So that is exciting, and we should hang our hats on that. Our growth is tremendous. Okay, so that's something, if you're, you know, talking to your staff or, you know, the public, and you're giving information, this is, from what I've seen, the most current information as far as number of wineries in the state. So, you know, we're not at 500 or 400 anymore. We are well beyond that, almost 800, and probably by now past that. So really exciting. Another exciting figure is that, you know, when we think about Texas grapes and Texas wine, of course, your mind may immediately be drawn to the high plains or the hill country, but we are growing grapes in every single part of the state. And I want to thank Dr. Shiner for putting together, this is a 2021, so this is the most recent kind of maps. He developed these from data, both on the TABC level for number of G permits, but also the program specialist with the AgriLife. We pooled all of our vineyard information to look at, to formulate these maps. So just looking at, you know, the density of wineries across Texas, we see, of course, there's a heavy population, a heavy and healthy density of wineries in the hill country, but also in some in the high plains, of course. But even look at Dallas-Fort Worth, a very high concentration of wineries, and even Houston. So we're spread out, but look, we have, you know, wineries in Del Rio and El Paso and all the way in East Texas and down in South Texas. Similarly, the vineyards, we have vineyards all the way up in Dalhart. We have vineyards also in El Paso, all the way down in Orange, all the way down to, you know, Hidalgo and Cameron County. So, you know, we are across the entire state, which is also exciting, and that continues to expand. As you well know, growing grapes and making wine, you know, the kind of agritourism model may be a little different depending on where you are and the niche markets you can establish. But we are an industry that reaches far and wide. Like I said, long gone are the days where you would say there's not a winery or even a vineyard near me. So this is something that's brand spanking new that we've put together that we're excited about, just a visual. You know, I'm an Aggie, so I like visual things, you know, keep it simple. So that's kind of just a little update on, you know, research-based facts and figures for our wonderful and quickly growing and maturing Texas wine industry. Now moving in to kind of these big players, especially on the federal and state level, that you'll want to know about, whether you're a new grower or new into the wine industry, you're establishing a winery for the first time or a tasting room, or you've been doing this for 30 or 40 years. I just want to quickly kind of go over this, but our first big entity that you will become very familiar with, especially if you're on the vineyard side of things, is our Texas Department of Agriculture, or TDA. Now, most of you inherently or instinctively, especially if you ranch or you have cotton, you're in some sort of agriculture-based enterprise, you may be thinking about pesticide licenses and enforcement, and someone coming onto your farm and taking a look at things. And certainly the Texas Department of Agriculture is tasked with pesticide regulation, but they actually do much, much more. So the Texas Department of Agriculture is responsible for issuing many grants and loans, not only for vineyards, but even agritourism, agricultural enterprises such as wineries or tasting rooms. So there are grants and loans available. The Young Farmer Grant is one. The Agricultural Loan Guarantee Program is another. The STAR Fund, which I had never heard about until just now this year, thanks to Winter Storm Uri, is another. But believe it or not, TDA is also responsible in helping support downtown revitalization. So if there's an area being gentrified and you're putting in a winery or something agritourism based, you may want to look into financing or loan options or grant options for that that kind of whole downtown revitalization. Rural business development, broadband is something right now I'm worried about because here I am speaking to you on HughesNet. And so let me just check the chat. And so it'd be nice if we could all have internet that is decent. But one thing that really surprises me, and I didn't know about this until I really started getting involved with AgriLife Extension, is the Texas Department of Agriculture also is very active in wine marketing through the Go Texan program, Uncork Texas Wine. And so they really do a lot. And of course, again, they do deal a lot with pesticide regulations, which I'll talk about in a minute. Okay. And so one of the first things I'm just going to quickly talk about, again, Kat Nielsen, who is the grant specialist with the Texas Department of Agriculture, spoke in great detail on these programs. As you well know, anytime you deal with a federal or state agency, there's going to be a lot of technical jargon, a lot of rules, a lot of eligibility requirements, a lot of applications and paperwork. But that shouldn't deter you because there are some great opportunities to help ease that burden. We know in the wine industry, again, growing grapes, making wine requires a lot of upfront capital, and the return of investment can take years to even start seeing that trickling back in. And so the first thing I'm going to encourage you to do is if you're a new grape grower in particular, take a look at the Young Farmers Grant. Okay, this is a matching grant of up to $20,000. It's offered twice a year. What most people don't realize is it is taxpayer funded. And so if you next time I invite you when you're renewing your vehicle registration, take a look at that itemized receipt and it will show Young Farmers Grant. So everyone who drives a vehicle and has that registered with the state of Texas contributes to the Young Farmers Grant. Okay, now it is a great program. I have written many letter of recommendations for growers in North Texas because it is a very competitive grant. Now it says Young Farmer Grant. That does not mean you have to be young, right? You have to be younger than 46, 18 to 46, but it's for people who are looking at starting an agricultural enterprise, okay? And it can help you meet the financial need that otherwise would not be met. And so this is something you could look at. Now you can go onto the website, you can look at the TWIGA presentation that Kat gave in June and get the details, but you can see the next application is due November 4th. So a great offering from the TDA for those just starting out. Another program offered by TDA is the Agricultural Loan Guarantee Program. Kat again talked about this in great detail. The contact would be Mindy Fryer, the Director of Contracts and Grants. So I would contact her, but this essentially is a way to help support your loans for starting a farming or ranching enterprise or any agricultural related business. The program provides assistance in the form of guarantees tied to any commercial lending bank or farm credit system, not to exceed $500,000. Okay, so you can look at all the details, but you can use the funds on your operating a farm or ranch, leasing of facilities, purchasing of machinery and equipment, purchase of real estate. So this is an option for someone starting off, with limited capital in the vineyard business or even in the winery side of things. And so this is kind of a protection, a loan program that can help you attain funding. So I would certainly look into that, okay? That is through the Texas Department of Agriculture. Now, one thing, again, I mentioned that I had no clue was even offered, and that Kat talked about as well in greater detail, is the STAR Fund. And the STAR Fund is the State of Texas Agriculture Relief Fund. And so many of us in across the entire state of Texas were hit hard with Winter Storm Uri, I know a number of growers that had just planted new vineyards. Some of those were completely wiped out. Y'all know how expensive and laborious it is putting in vineyards. And I have worked with these growers looking at things, disaster relief. And the STAR program is something you should look into. What's unique about the STAR fund, it is a state fund, so it's through the Texas Department of Agriculture. It is not a federal program. And it is a fund that is purely based on donations. Texans are proud. Texans support agriculture, right? Texans love Texas-made products. And so there is a fund that is a first come, first serve, application based. And if you are in a designated disaster area, you can apply for up to $4,000 of assistance. And that money is given. There are, of course, some eligibility and how you can use these funds. But this is something that is purely based off the generosity of the Texas public. They can donate on TDA's website, and that is money that can help during disaster. Okay, that is on the state level. You can also contact, again, Kat Nielsen, who is the TDA grant specialist, for more information on that. Now, I don't know any growers that have used STAR Fund right now. Of course, I know some that have used federal funding that I've worked with, but as you know, there are deadlines. And so as soon as something happens and you're in a disaster area, maybe there was a tornado, a drought, hurricane like Hurricane Harvey, Winter Storm Uri affected every single county in Texas. You'd want to get on the horn immediately and apply. And so keep an eye on that. Now you go, well, that's great, but it's too late to apply now. Well, I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth, and I know that the meteorologists are predicting we're in La Nina, and they're predicting another very erratic winter. It's going to be a little more warmer and mild, but that also means we're probably going to have some cold snaps that are going to be very cold. And so they're thinking we may have another setup of what we did last year. And so as a grape grower, as a winery operation, you may be wanting to look at getting ready if you are, affected by a natural disaster, to have these in your back pocket. Okay. Now, again, wrapping up Texas Department of Ag, they are responsible for regulating our pesticide use. A pesticide, of course, is a chemical used to help control pests or disease, weeds, and so they regulate pesticide use for the state of Texas. They're also testing pesticide use and approving their use. So Texas A&M and Texas Tech, I know, have helped to get some new pesticides labeled for vineyards in Texas. For example, cotton root rot, Top Guard Terra, and Topsin M pesticides, which are very important for our use in vineyards. They're also responsible for issuing the pesticide application licenses. There's many different kinds, and so they're the certification agency. TDA is also the enforcement agency for all these rules and regulations. So if you look at Texas A&M, I come out to your site doing some consulting, research-based consulting. I'm not an enforcer, I'm an educator, right? So is Justin and Fran and our whole team. TDA are the ones that have enforcement agents that will come out and evaluate, your log books and that. Also, if you're going to report an incidence of, let's say, herbicide volatilization or particle drift, depending on the case, you would contact the TDA and they would conduct an investigation. Of course, they are the enforcement agency, so not only are they going to talk to your neighbors, they're also going to look at your records. Okay, so we always want to be keeping good records. Now, a lot of new growers go, well, maybe they don't have a ranching or farming background, and they go, do I need to get an applicator's license to put out fungicides or insecticides in my vineyard? And the answer is it usually 99% of the time it is not necessary. So a private applicator's license is what most growers will utilize if you're applying a pesticide on your own vineyard. But you only need that license if you're applying restricted use pesticides, and those are listed on the TDA's website. And there are very few, if any, anymore, that are restricted use pesticides for vineyard use. Now, that being said, this full program will help equip you with the knowledge of understanding how to read a label, the safety associated with pesticide use. So it's a great certification program to go through. So I recommend you look into that. But as far as do you need an actual license to apply a pesticide, the answer is generally no in Texas vineyards. Now, that being said, you are still federally obligated if you apply a pesticide registered with the EPA to follow that label, and that is a federal law. So we always want to be consulting our product labels and applying them safely for not only our health, but our health of our family, and those who are going to consume our grapes or drink our wine, and then of course, environmental safety as well. So TDA, more enforcement and certification for pesticide use. AgriLife Extension, we are the outreach agency for the state. We are the land grant university that houses the extension service. Justin will talk about that a little bit later, but we are tasked with providing the continuing education units to keep current with your pesticide applicator license if you do utilize that, okay? Now, the last little thing I'll talk about with TDA, because they do quite a bit and they are helpful, very helpful to our industry, is they're also great marketers of our wine and our vineyards. And so you may be familiar with the Go Texan program that was established in 1999. And it is the Texas Department of Ag's licensed marketing program that assures consumers what they are buying is truly made in Texas. We know Texans love the state of Texas. We're very prideful. When I was in California, they just didn't have a lot of California pride. We have Texas pride here. And people, especially now, the newer generations, the millennials, and whoever the new ones are, I don't know, I'm a millennial, so I don't identify as one, but I technically am. You know, they are craving locally produced Texas-made products. They want to know the story, and they're going crazy, right? So you may consider the Go Texan program. If you go online, there's a partner benefits guide. You can read all this later, right? But the Go Texan program is quite successful. Lindsay Bearwold with the Texas Department of Ag also helps marketing Texas wine through Uncorked Texas Wines. You could subscribe to the newsletter. There's great information. So this is the May 2021 newsletter. I just took a snapshot here if you're subscribed. Go Texan Marketing Enhancement Grant Assistance, the Small Business Administration Restaurant and Revitalization Fund, outreach. So there's lots of great things to be kept up upon to help you in your winery operation or your vineyard. So if you haven't already, look at that. It's also great for the public to find a winery, find an event of Go Texan products, and including wine, of course, in particular in this case. So TDA does also help with marketing. Now, some of y'all may have gone to an agritourism, maybe a Christmas tree farm or a cattle ranch or a vineyard or winery, and you see this sign and you go, what's the deal with this Chapter 75A Texas law warning? This is new, fairly new. The Texas Agritourism Act, in 2015 with the Texas State Legislature, this has required signage for events like harvesting, planting events, picnics, outdoor events. It was passed in 2015, again by the Texas State Legislature. And it states that an agritourism entity is not liable to any person for injuries or damages to an agritourism participant injured on agricultural land if, before the activity, the landowner posts required signs or obtains from the participant a signed written agreement. Now, if you have the sign, then you don't need written agreement, from what I understand. So this is a sign that will help protect you. There are exceptions, of course, but if you don't have one, you'll want to order this sign and have it on the premise to help protect your business. Okay, so this is something relatively new that you may have been seeing as you're going to these events. This is something in the vineyard and winery business you will want to have on your premise to protect you. Okay. Now, moving on to federal, so we talked about Texas Department of Agriculture, some state resources. Moving on to the USDA, or the United States Department of Agriculture, they offer a couple things that we may take advantage of as Texas grape growers and winemakers. The first is the NRCS, or the Natural Resources Conservation Service. They do a lot with helping conserve our land and protecting our land and our soil. But the two key points I want to highlight here is if you're establishing a new vineyard or you're expanding, if you've ever gone to your county office with Texas A&M, the AgriLife office, or your county library, sometimes will house the old hard copy soil surveys that were done, I think in the 40s or 50s. And it's all digitized and free through the NRCS. So you can go web soil survey, and you can actually look at your property, if you haven't done this before, satellite imaging, and you can see the types of soil you have in the general kind of basic characteristics of your site, which could be important if you're building a building, looking at the foundation, if you're putting in a vineyard, looking at where the soil changes. So that's one tool we can use through the NRCS. And there is financial assistance to help with landowners and ag producers to provide financial and technical assistance to help manage natural resources in a sustainable manner. Okay, this funding can help with opportunities to help save energy, improve soil, water, plant, air, and animal and related resources on agriculture lands and non-industrial private forest land. So if you're looking for some financial help, definitely look at NRCS. Again, this is a federal program. Some of y'all, this is what we use with AgriLife when we're doing our surveying. If you haven't looked at this, the USDA is responsible through the NASS or the NASS, the National Agricultural Statistics Service, through putting out our hard data on vineyard acreage and production. And so this is conducted every 2 years, and the most recent is the 2020 Texas wine grape variety. Some of you may have gotten the surveys from USDA in the mail. Please fill those out. I know we're all protective of our properties, but this is only going to help us as an industry, showing the state legislature, the federal government as well, that we are growing and that we need assistance, right? This also helps us in extension to know exactly what we're dealing with so we can better assist you in providing resources. But if you haven't looked at this, or you're a little out of touch with what's being grown and what the top varieties are and where the most grapes are being grown and this and that and the yield, it's not a perfect survey, but it does give us something to look at. And so it's free, it's online, and that is again thanks to the USDA NASS service. So again, this I believe started in 2012, if I'm not mistaken, and the newest one just was released last year. So that is something that is of great aid to us as a wine industry in Texas that you may want to become familiar with. I think one of the last organizations I'm going to speak on is also with the USDA, and that is the Farm Service Agency. Some of you may be familiar with them. They're going to be out of your local USDA office. Most of those are county-based, so almost every county will have one. There may be some counties more rural that have a regional office. But the Farm Service Agency is very important. If you haven't looked into that, I'm a beekeeper. I have utilized the benefits of the Farm Service Agency when my beehives were flooded out from all the rain we got. They provided disaster relief for my apiary. But the Farm Service Agency provides a safety net for all farmers, ranchers, and ag partners through conservation, commodity, and disaster programs, loans, and credit. Okay, and the focus is on beginning, minority, and women farmers and ranchers, and purchases and delivers commodities for use in international humanitarian food programs. But if you are not familiar with FSA, go ahead and contact them. Tell them you've got a vineyard or winery, and are there any programs that can help, especially during times of disaster? This was another program. This is now on the federal level, so different than STAR. It's called TAP. And I've worked with a number of growers in North Texas on acquiring relief from Winter Storm Uri, thanks to the TAP program. This was part of the Farm Bill, and it authorizes tree assistance to provide financial assistance to qualifying orchardists and nursery tree growers, which includes vineyards, to replant or rehabilitate eligible trees, bushes, and vines damaged by natural disasters. Okay, limited ceiling of 125,000 and 1,000 acres. This is a great program. If anyone does utilize this program, a lot of the USDA FSA agents who come out and look at properties to complete the application are not as familiar with vineyards. Our program specialists with Extension are happy to help work with them and do a write-up to help get that funding, okay? So this is a great opportunity to help when you need to replant or replace or retrain your vineyard, okay? So that's the Tree Assistance Program through the USDA Farm Service Agency. Now, some of y'all employ people in your tasting room or maybe even your vineyard, and you're going, well, I don't have a vineyard, so none of that applies to me. Well, especially with COVID, there's been a lot of federal relief. I'm sure it's difficult and it's a process to apply. We had Anthony Ruiz, which is the Small Business Administration contact for the state of Texas. He is out of San Antonio. He will be happy to help you if you need any type of relief from COVID or anything, and you have a small business, contact him. He is our contact for the entire state. And I don't know how many of these programs are still active, but during COVID, he was talking about for wineries and vineyards, the Paycheck Protection Program, EIDL loan advance, SBA Express Bridge loans, SBA debt relief. So there are resources that can help in COVID. I know talking to many wineries, COVID really hit home and hit hard. And it's very difficult. And I've seen how Texas wineries have reacted and responded. We know we're Texas tough. We'll get through this, but there are opportunities. And so why not take advantage of those? All right. So the Small Business Administration can help with that. The TTB and TABC are the alcohol enforcement regulatory agencies. I know that there was talk about that earlier, so I'll just blast through this. The TTB is the federal level for anyone who's brand new to the industry. They approve wine business permits, labels, alcohol production and distribution, federal excise taxing, but they're also in charge at the federal level of approving the American viticulture areas. And we have 8 of those in Texas. And I know many regions, new regional associations, Fran will talk about in a little bit, are interested in increasing the amount of AVAs in Texas. And so that would be done through the TTB, through the federal level, right? So it's a long process, but there can be a great benefit to doing that. Okay, so the TTB would be responsible for that. TABC is our home backyard, Alcohol Beverage Commission for the state of Texas, with the Texas Comptroller, and they are tasked with granting, refusing, suspending, or canceling winery permits and licenses, enforcing alcohol laws, collecting excise tax reports, and approve and regulating labels as well. So those are some other acronyms you want to know. And the last one, and then I'll move it on to Fran, is the TCEQ, which is essentially the state EPA, or Environmental Protection Agency. This is called the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Their goal is to keep Texas clean as far as our air, water, and safe management of waste, right? Where does that waste go? Now in the vineyard, TCEQ I'm sure has regulations and rules, but most of us are very familiar with what's been going on in the last couple of years with TCEQ and the new regulations for winery use and how waste is managed. And that has been challenging, to say the least. So you certainly want to, in particular, if you're designing your winery, I know a couple wineries in North Texas have dealt with TCEQ and have had to redo their designs for their new winery based on the new rules. So they are there to apply and enforce environmental regulations and protect the state's public health and natural resources consistent with sustainable economic development. So TCEQ is someone you'll want to be contacting in particular if you are putting in a winery in the state. Okay, so with that, those are some of the big players, some of the federal and state acronyms, so to speak, that you want to keep an eye on. Again, keep this PowerPoint in your back pocket and let's pray Mother Nature is not as cruel to us as she was, and that we can continue to move past COVID. I want to introduce the next speaker. If there aren't any questions.
There's one question in the chat before we move on. The question,
okay, let me see.
TDA Young Farmer Grant. And the question is can it be used to expand an existing vineyard?
That's a great question. To my knowledge, yes. I would get in touch with Kat. I don't know if the rules have changed, but I believe so. As long as you're within the correct age range and you are dealing with an agriculture-based operation, I believe you can, and that would I certainly hope so, and that would be difficult because it's highly competitive. And so let's say you don't get it the first year, but you're having to invest and begin your operation. I would think that you'd be able to expand your vineyard with that funding. So certainly I would double check on that, but to my knowledge, yes.
Their current description says yes.
Yeah, and remember, Kat Nielsen with TDA did talk in much more detail on all these programs with the Texas Department of Ag, and we do have that. I believe Sabrina's getting the PowerPoint to post on TWIGA's website under these regional meetings. So I want to thank y'all for your attention. Hopefully it wasn't too glitchy, and I want to introduce Fran Pontash, my colleague in the Gulf Coast. We work very closely together. And she is the program specialist with AgriLife Extension, who's going to talk about some other resources available to both grape growers and winemakers in the state. So Fran, I think my screen is done.
Okay,
So
thank you, Michael. I'll share mine then. Alrighty. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so I'm preaching to the choir here, but I just wanted to just give kudos to Twiga. I appreciate all the support because they offer it unilaterally. You know, all growers and all wineries are important to the Twiga endeavors. So we all benefit as an industry. So you know what they say is one.
I believe you're sharing the incorrect screen.
Oh, I am. And what are you looking at? Quarterly
Word
report.
document. A Word document.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, it is. I have two screens open. Thanks, Justin. Good grief. All right, let's see. This is the one I want. Sorry, from beginning. How about that? That should be it. Is it still not?
Can you right click and remove the presenter view?
Where?
Just right click and then it will say hide presenter view and then just hide the presenter view. Because we can see if you have any notes.
I don't see it.
It's a little
It's
higher.
up just a couple.
Two more down.
Oh,
There you go.
all right. Okay, let me get rid of these.
You're back to the wrong screen again.
Wow.
We'll get you there.
There, that one. Let me get it on the right. Okay, it's on the wrong device. Maybe that's why. Okay, how about now? You see it now?
Yes. Far so good.
Is it? It's not in slideshow, is it? Is it in?
Not yet. Yeah.
Why is it? Okay. That's odd.
Oh, I think it's. Oh.
I think you can probably roll from there.
Okay.
It's large size screen.
It is? Okay. Anyway, so back to Twiga. The networking is phenomenal. The educational events are always a great payoff. And I usually recommend attending them in person because you can accomplish so many of the items on your list with all the people that are present. I mean, how easily is it to just bump into the person that has the answers to whatever the questions you may have. And that happens at both Grape Camp and the annual conference. And then all the promotional activities. So I advocate that. I advocate Twiga. Anyway, like I said, preaching to the choir. But in addition to Twiga, we also have our regional associations, and each region has at least one organization, one association that deals with things more locally at the local level. And I recommend that as well. Just really good ways to get the problems met for your particular level. I know in the Gulf Coast, we deal with issues that are important to our region, and same with the others as well. On the national level, we have the American Association of Enology and Viticulture, and it's important to know that it's divided into two sections. So Texas, being as diverse as we are viticulturally in our wine, we grow everything. And in addition, we grow all the varieties, make lots of varieties of wine, both vinifera and hybrid. And we have all the disease issues, most of the insect issues, and I think all the disease issues. So we are very diverse, and the western dry parts of the state usually identify best with the national sector, which is the lavender states, dominated by California, Oregon, and Washington. It includes others, but those dominate the information that is generated in those states. all with Vitis vinifera varieties. As far as the eastern section of ASEV, that's most of the rest of the US and Canada. So with ASEV eastern section, we deal with too much water, flooding, high disease pressure, more cold tolerant varieties, things like that, and the hybrids, muscadines, the other issues that aren't covered. I know, like in the western section, they just don't understand our weed control, our disease pressure, and they don't really address that. They have other more drought concerns. So if you are in a droughty situation, then you're better suited for the western part. And if that's not, then I'd say seek out the eastern section if this is something you'd want to do. Or also when researching, like doing online research searches, and you find information at different universities, check out the state they're from before you take it too much to heart. They might not be addressing your particular needs. So if you have Cornell or Virginia Tech or something, and you're dealing with hybrids, that might suit you better than, say, University of California. As far as Texas goes, there's often confusion as to who's really what we are. So I'm with AgriLife Extension, and that's the outreach education arm of Texas A&M. So it's part of A&M, but another agency. So we don't deal with the university. Well, we deal with the university, but our primary goal is for outreach, is for y'all, is for existing businesses, and to make successful businesses in agricultural enterprises. A&M is the teaching part of Texas A&M, the university, so the classes. So where AgriLife Extension, we do that's what Justin's going to talk about more. He'll be discussing that, but we do the workshops and the hands-on, where A&M would be teaching students and giving university credits. Texas Tech does both. So they have the viticulture and enology program in Fredericksburg, and then they teach classes in Lubbock, and Grayson has the applied associate's degree for their program in Denison. We all have the same goal, but we go about it differently. There's quite a number of websites I recommend, and start with ours, winegrapes.tamu.edu, but we also have a community extension site that addresses concerns, Great Berry Moth, for instance, and it's written by all the extension viticulturists and enologists throughout the nation. And we do meet together, we compare notes, we share knowledge, and that's one of the platforms we use to get the word out on different national concerns. Michael mentioned the Web Soil Survey. We have our soil, I think I left that slide out. Did I? Tried to cut this down a bit, pare down the knowledge. Soil, water, and petiole tests, so tissue testing for fertilizer concerns. So we do all that. That's their website. Irrigation scheduling, there's a very good website for that, based on water use, rainfall, recommendations for scheduling, for optimizing your water, what you have. National Grape Registry is for every variety that is grown is registered for grapes. It's National Grape Registry. So they are the ones that they document the parentage and background of all varieties. So if you're looking at an inventory or availability list for a different nursery or so, you can look it up on the Grape Registry and see what's the background, especially when they get into the clones or not clones, but just some of the more obscure varieties. You can get a better idea of how it might grow in your vineyard. FPS cleans all the plant material. So they propagate the mother blocks. The mother blocks are blocks of different varieties of grapes that nurseries use to propagate from and sell from. So foundation is the main. If you brought in a new variety from out of the country, it would have to go through Foundation Plant Services to be cleaned up of all diseases, except for crown gall. Crown gall is not something they're able to do. This last one, Agrion.com, is a real helpful tool. I use it all the time, and I highly recommend that y'all remember that, because it pulls up pesticide labels really quick, and you can just do your control find on your computer, put in grapes, and it pops up how to use that pesticide in a vineyard and whether it's even labeled. We have our pesticide guide, but if you're at the store and you just want to know more about it, it's just a lot easier than that tiny print on the label that the jugs provide. It's right there on your screen. Some of the must reads. Now, these are all extension publications. Some of them are new, like Starting a Vineyard in Texas. That was the TDA funded project we published last year, and it's available for free to anybody that wants it, by the way. So anybody wants it for their winery or something, just stack them up and give them out. So if you don't have time, you don't want to spend the time talking to people about starting a vineyard. Nature Tourism is an AgriLife publication. It outlines, and it actually has a worksheets in there to talk about what you can do on your property besides planting grapes. If you wanted to keep bees, run cattle, to just diversify the property that you have to maximize income for the acreage that you have. It's a real good source of information, and I highly recommend that as well. Grapevine Disorders, that was spearheaded by Michael last year. Jim Comis's book, Growing Grapes in Texas, and then our spray guide, which comes out new every year because it addresses the changes in pesticide labeling. And then we have a lot of different publications available as well, and most of them are free. Some of my favorite books. So for our Vitis vinifera and drier climate growers, I'd say the Grape Grower Handbook, and for the eastern part of our state, the Wine Grape Production Guide are wonderful guides to have in your library. Just a few books. There's a gazillion of them, but those are a few must-haves. And that's funny. Anyway, that came out weird. So Texas Wine Lover, they are in everybody's mailbox usually. And Jeff Cope has done a great job kind of keeping us informed on who's new and who's coming up, what's going on in the world, just so we can better network and know each other when we meet each other face to face. Here's a soil testing lab. For our 3 to 5 years, you're doing your soil and water, and then, well, water you can do more often in case of drought, especially. You want to check your water quality. And then yearly petiole testing. Plant Disease Diagnostic Lab. excellent source for getting a definitive answer. You know, a lot of stuff we can do, we can help you with and put ID, you know, like the disorder guide, pocket guide. But when you have something big, you really want to have it tested, like a concern for virus, PD, or cotton root rot. It's best to get it tested definitively. I'm going to wrap this up. It's just some of the nurseries. So we have some new varieties coming up around the bend, and these are the Sunridge, Novavine, and Wonderful are the ones licensed for the Walker varieties. I think AA might be acquiring them soon. So they have, these are reputable nurseries that I always feel comfortable with people saying they purchase stuff. So with that, no further ado, if there's any questions, I'll pass this on to Justin.
All righty. Thank you, Fran. I'm going to try to wrap this thing up and put a bow on it real quickly by talking a little bit about what we do at Texas A&M. But before I do, I want to highlight perhaps the most important resource to you all out there, especially if you're new in the industry, but even if you are, you have a lot of experience, and that's you, that's the other industry members out there. And I want to take this time to say it's not too late to get a hotel room for Grape Camp, and certainly not register. I know Holiday Inn has rooms left. So Grape Camp and other events are a great place to network and share information. And that probably really is the single best resource that you have available to you is other members of the industry. And some of those topics that have already come up today, things like TCEQ, there's going to be greater discussion from experts at Grape Camp. So it'll be a good opportunity to meet people, ask questions, and learn. And one thing that Zoom has enabled us to do, we've all become professionals, I suppose, at this point. And we all, kind of appreciate some of the nuances, the ins and the outs of Zoom. This has allowed us to bring in some international perspectives to these programs when otherwise we might be restricted, whether it's scheduling or even financially. So I would highly encourage you to consider Grape Camp if you have an opportunity. If not, or even if you do go to Grape Camp, I would highly recommend that you look at the 2022 annual conference, which will be in February in Denton. Another great lineup of speakers and topics. You can go on the website and you can find out some more information there about those. And without further ado, I do want to make a couple of comments about Texas A&M and Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, because especially if you're new to the industry, there's a lot of confusion about, what is Texas A&M AgriLife Extension? What do we do, and how do we relate to Texas A&M University, for example? And I'll keep this brief. But whether you're new, whether you're an existing vineyard or winery, we are a resource to you in terms of information that we can share, educational opportunities, and applied research. So we certainly don't have all the answers to all of your questions, but one of the good things about working with Extension is that there's a number of us across the state, and we work with you guys on a regular basis. So we see the good, we see the bad, and we're able to pass a lot of that information along to you. So A&M AgriLife Extension, we are part of the Texas A&M University system, which is massive. There's 11 universities and there's 8 agencies in this system. We are one of those 8 agencies. So it's things like the Texas A&M Forest Service. That's also one of those agencies. So most of the viticulture and enology support, Michael, Fran, myself, and others, we work for Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. And so some of those appropriations through Senate Bill 881 was specifically targeted to Texas A&M AgriLife Extension for viticulture and enology support. And so the extension system is quite large. It's statewide. You're probably familiar with it through your local county level. There's 250 county offices in the 254 counties in Texas. So most of those people that work at the county office are extension agents. Sometimes they have a specialization and they can field some questions related perhaps to, site use and things of that nature. And when it comes to, grapes and wine, there are a number of us that specialize in those areas, and we're referred to as specialists or program specialists. And so most of you at this point have probably met your regional program specialist, Michael, Fran, Bree, Danny. We all work in different regions, and our primary charge is educational programming and technical support. There's also specialists, which for your purposes, there's really not much of a difference, but in terms of our mandate, we're a little more research focused in those positions. And then finally, we also have extension personnel that specialize in things like plant pathology, so plant pests and diseases. So if you had a specific question or maybe some unique or particular challenge on your site that related to pests and disease, we do have experts that are able to help out with that as well. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of areas here, and then we will wrap it up because I do believe we're just about out of time. But if you're new and you need some technical support, you've got some questions that you want to get answered, or maybe you see a spot on the leaf, you see some sort of disease, we're there to answer those questions. And many times we've seen it before, and often sometimes we'll go out and visit your site and do some detective work and help you figure out what the particular challenge is. Or maybe perhaps you want to build a new winery or a new vineyard and you need some advice, you need some guidance. That's one of our major functions at Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. We hold a number of different programs throughout the year across the state. Most of them tend to be targeted and focused, all the way from prospective, winery or prospective vineyard short courses to advanced short courses. And so who chooses these topics? Well, it's kind of a combination. Sometimes it's things that we frequently receive questions on, and sometimes it's areas that you ask for, and we're always open to that. For example, after Winter Storm Uri, we had a meeting, it was Zoom based, to address some of the issues related to the winter injury. And that was just based off of the perceived need as well as a lot of questions that were asked. So if there's a particular topic that you're interested in, you're looking for information, you would like to have a meeting, maybe at your site, we're happy to do that. Please contact us. And as far as the research function goes, I'm not going to say too much about that. We do a lot of research behind the scenes, and we have a symposium in December. If you're interested to know what type of research is being conducted at Texas A&M, we're going to highlight some of that. For example, if you're interested in maybe some of the new phage technology that's a therapeutic for Pierce's disease, the researcher that developed that technology, he's from Texas A&M. He'll be giving a presentation about it, and you can learn about some of the ins and outs, as well as some of the other research that is underway here in Texas and that has been conducted. So I would invite you to attend that if you're interested in some of the different research projects that are going on. We also have a number of different resources out there. You can look at our website, winegrapes.tamu.edu. You can find a number of different guides and fact sheets and things like that out there. Fran mentioned our pest management and weed management guide. That's something that we put out every year. So you can find information about that online, and we do have that available through our bookstore. We also develop new guides and new fact sheets, typically on an annual basis. So if you have been and visited the website and you haven't been there in a few months, chances are there's more content there available. And if there's a glaring omission, if you see a need for some information that's absolutely not available on our website, let us know. We're glad to try to put that information together and make it available to you. We want to be a resource to you as the industry. And so I'm going to wrap it up there and hopefully keep us on track. If anybody has any last minute questions, I'll say, for our speakers, we can field those. And we'll have a 30-minute break afterwards. And then we want you to come back because we have our regional meetings. And this is a good opportunity for you in your individual region to have a discussion really about anything that's pertinent or relevant to your region that you have a vineyard or winery in, or perhaps are considering it. So I will stop my screen share right there, open it up to any last minute questions. I do see a couple of chats in there, and I think this is good to highlight this. There's a link in there to Grape Camp that shows the speakers and the topics. And so I think if you're on the fence whether or not you want to attend and you take a look at some of those topics and speakers, it's probably going to make the decision for you. Or if you perhaps want to taste some of the new University of California Davis wines, some of those varieties that are now available, most of them have not ever been grown in Texas before. And I'll use this as a pitch too for AgriLife Extension. We've grown one of them historically and have information on it, Caminari Noir, but the other 4 that were released, University of California Davis did not allow us to grow them in advance of their release. And so what we are trying to do now and moving forward is to gather as much information as possible on those varieties. So if you've planted any of those, we would like to hear from you because we want to gather that information and then share it back with the industry. And so if you attend Grape Camp, you'll have an opportunity to taste Caminari Noir and Paciente Noir, which are 2 red wine releases. The results of the Lone Star National Wine Competition are also posted. A lot of Texas winners there, very impressive. So check that out. And there is also the Zoom link for the regional breakouts. It's going to be a different one than this link, but it is posted in the chat. So please stick around, or come back, I should say, for that regional meeting. And with that, I think we will wrap it up for this education session, unless anybody has any last minute comments or questions. Okay. Well, thank you to the speakers today, and thank you for your attention. And if you think of any questions, let us know, and keep an eye out if you want to share those presentations with anyone who wasn't able to attend. They will be posted on TWIGA's website. All right, thanks.
All right, thank you, Justin. Go get yourself some lunch and we'll visit back here for regional breakouts at 12 noon. It is a different Zoom link, and you can find that on the website. I've posted it in the chat. Thank you all. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Fran, Michael, Justin. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Sabrina, do we just stay here or do we log in at that other Zoom?
You're
link?
going to have to log in. I'm getting ready to turn this one off. You've got to log into
Okay.
the other one, because when we go to breakouts, it's a different Zoom activity that I have to engage in.
Okay, no, that's fine. And Meredith, you know, I'm going to talk about the vine roots like we discussed yesterday, but you know, I don't have a whole lot to present, so it'll probably be pretty short and sweet.
Yeah, that's fine. I was actually expecting that. They have been in the past. There's not really a whole lot to cover. I know Justin just did an awesome plug on Grape Camp. I will do that again, just to hopefully drum up a little more interest for anybody that might not have been on this session. But yeah, that's okay. And we can open it up to those regional members if there's anything that they would like to discuss or some research they want us to do. And yeah, we can just call it a day.
Sounds good. All right, I'll log on to the other link. Thanks, Sabrina.
You're welcome, sir. Anytime.
See y'all
Talk
soon.
soon.
Bye.